So the insulated education pipeline is a term we've been using for about 5 years to acknowledge the fact that the country is really focused on, as it should be, plugging the leaks in the education pipeline. We know that for every 100 young people who enter bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in kindergarten, like 17 in some communities come out the other door from college or some kind of post-secondary education institution. And so those numbers are not the numbers that we want. So a lot of emphasis in communities is being placed on plugging the leaks in that pipeline between early childhood, elementary, middle, high school, and on, getting young people not just into college, but successfully coming out the other side, completing some kind of post-secondary work. As we think about the young people who are the most vulnerable and the most likely to fail in the education system, however, it's important for us to recognize that just focusing on their academics is not enough. The problem-free isn't fully prepared. And young people won't be well prepared academically and vocationally if they don't have broader supports in their lives and they don't have folks who are actively addressing risky circumstances and risky behaviors that they're either threatened by or are involved in. That meant that we really needed to think about who needs to be working with schools and around schools. That's not a new idea. We've talked about school-community partnerships for a while. But as we started working with communities on this whole idea of the education continuum, the idea of actually thinking about layers of insulation around that continuum became to give currency and structure to folks' conversations about how do we build these partnerships. So the first layer that has to be around schools is that normative layer of family, school, and community supports for young people, whether that's from the faith community, the nonprofit community, it's internships, it's summer jobs, it's recreation departments, those things that should be in young people's lives that supplement and complement their formal academic education. And then around that layer of supports are those more basic services, whether that's healthcare, it's transportation, it's financial programs for their families or for themselves. Obviously it's juvenile justice, it's child welfare when those services are needed. Employment services have to be in that larger sense. Now each of those layers has its challenges. And what we've been doing is going into communities to help them first map who works where in that pipeline. But the combination of the layers with the idea of development, who's doing those things in the early childhood space, who's doing those things for young adults, is really giving communities for the first time a sense of how complete their support systems are for young people. In the post-secondary space, for example, where we have a lot of push to make sure young people are not just applying for, but getting into and getting through college, we focus a lot on academic remediation and financial aid. But what we learn from young people, especially those who are first-time college goers, those who are coming out of juvenile justice or child welfare settings, is that the supports that they need are so far exceed just academic remediation and financial aid. They are those kind of social and emotional supports that they need to have, they're navigational supports that they need to have, and if those are not being provided by the formal academic institution, there's a strong and important role that community organizations and the organizations from which they're coming can play to fill those supports. So part of this is really defining readiness as not just academic and vocational success, not just the prevention or the absence of problems, but also the presence of developmental competencies that young people need to have. Those navigational competencies, life skills, soft skills, social and emotional skills, whatever you want to call them, have to be there. And the question is, how do young people build those skills? Who supports them in building those skills? And we know that they're very relationship and place driven. So the emphasis, especially for young adults and teenagers, is identifying where they're going to find people and places for building and practicing those skills, who also can help them stay on track with their educational and vocational goals and work on whatever risk problems they have.